You have 1 week's notice before you forcibly time travel. With no way back, you will arrive in the same physical location on the 1st of January 1970 with absolutely nothing. Nude. How do you prepare? And what do you do when you arrive? 1 week. Research sports games, lottery drawings, stock prices, etc. On the last day, get my ass kicked. Nothing permanent. But I have to look bad. When I get there, I pretend that I've been left for dead and don't remember my name. I get processed as a John Doe. I get a new job, earn some money, and start investing and betting. Memorize a bunch of lotto numbers. Find out where my best friend's mom lived in 1970. Become her high school sweetheart. Eventually marry her. And become the father of my best friend. Checkmate Adam. Lots of good ideas for getting rich in this thread. But we are ignoring the easiest way to avoid the initial awkwardness. Go to the beach. And after you're zapped back in time, just pretend that the tide washed away your clothes and wallet while you were swimming. I'd just pretend to be a tourist who hitchhiked from another state a couple hours before. It's 1970. Even if the police get involved to help, they can't easily check interstate records to verify your story. Get a clean set of clothes. Perform odd jobs to afford a bus ticket. Then implement any of these other excellent plans. I slowly walk up to a group of punks and say, your clothes. Give them to me. Now. Everybody's planning on what they'll do when they go back in time. But I just spent the last week here really freaking some crap up in the present. Before I go, I'll dig up the journal I buried half a century ago to see which of my preparations worked the best. I'll also give some of the gold I buried to my friends and family before I go. Get all important information tattooed on my body, then strive to put right what once went wrong, and hope each time that my next leap will be the leap home. My house has been here for 120 years. Hopefully whoever lived here on the date is nice and understanding. All I know is that I'm finding a way to go to all the Led Zeppelin concerts. Terminator rules. How I memorize enough to set myself up as insanely rich, and then I get some period currency and put it in my mouth seconds before I leave. Terminator rules says, if it's covered in flesh it goes with you. 1 week, 0.1970, nude. I live in Eugene, Oregon. I'm good. I would not acknowledge any date before 1970, 0101, and pretend to be a Unix machine. Go to a biker's bar and ask for a jacket, pants and a bike with a thick Austrian accent. Do some push-ups. Gotta look good nude. The obvious. First memorize lottery numbers near the date. Then the stock market a few years forward. Read some history on what I missed since 1970 and spend the rest of the time learning as much science and technology discovered since. Then ready I go. Simple. 1. Hide in a cave for 42 years. 2. Invest in Bitcoin. 3. Profit. For those saying lottery, in the US, most state lotteries didn't start until the 80s. The US was also in a massive recession and stagflation with super high interest rates. So the idea of making a killing in the stock market is also out the window, at least until the 80s. You are better off memorizing sporting events, getting to Vegas, and betting on those. I'm in China right now. Crap. It's 1970. I'm freaking anything with a pulse. I become taken by dictator police and sent to prison likely, if not worse. I would likely die because I would be falling about 15 feet before splashing into the Mississippi River in the nude. There is almost nothing near here now, so there must be absolutely nothing in the 70s. Find a random odd job to make a few dollars in the next 11 days and get whatever I get on the Chiefs in Super Bowl IV. They were a 23-point underdog. The 70s were the golden age of gay sex. I'm prepared to pick up my new life, completely nude, on the dance floor of any given club and just see where it takes me. Break into a lab that holds samples of older diseases and vaccinate myself against every strain from 1970 I can find. Like every conversation I've ever had about time travel ends up being about the immune system and the evolution and adaptation of diseases. If you were to travel any more than a few years into the past or future, Your immune system would be vastly unprepared for the bacteria and viruses it would be bombarded with. Diseases, I feel, an issue with time travel that people don't really consider. I would create and memorize a cipher. I would use the cipher to tattoo onto my body sports victories, stock and commodity movements, etc. Me, hi future mother, hi now dead grandparents. Don't worry, I didn't mess the timeline. I'd ask Reddit. I can't get enough of these responses that don't immediately address being nude lol. Crap man, I don't think there is a way to prepare if I end up nude. I would need at least a spacesuit, though that's not really gonna help much given how far the sun will have traveled around the galaxy. So I will probably die from exposure to the hard vacuum of space before I can do anything. Cry because I just missed Woodstock. Step 1. Find a department store with a good men's clothing section, tool department, luggage department, etc. I want to be teleported in there in the dead of night and get dressed to the nines. Have a week's worth of clothes and a variety of high-end stuff. Use the register to print out receipts for all of it, because I'm going to drive across town in my newly stolen car and return it all for cash. Take the cash and bet it all on bowl game outcomes. Buy a small cottage and start investing like mad. Study business and investing. Pre-plagiarize a few novels and movie scripts. Come the mid-1970s, wander out to San Jose and start befriending geeks with great ideas who just need some seed money to get running. Offer them pointers and ideas. Get mad rich. Start befriending politicians and influencing policy as best I can. Start a secret side business running cocaine. But get out of that before it gets too dangerous. It's all for seed money anyway. By 1990 I'll be pushing 70. I'll find myself. Make him my heir. Encourage him to finish school and prepare him to take over my business empire. I'll tell him everything he needs to know about the tech landscape of the 1990s, 2000s, and 2010s, and tell him that under no circumstances is he to frick around with time machines or girls named Sharon, no matter how cute their accent is. Run to the police station and say I was robbed and forced to strip and everything, and I was homeless since birth, that's why I don't have a social security or anything. Then request a lead to a charity that will help me and everything. Then get a job, take advantage of boomer advantages, buy a house, car, start a family, and live the life I dream of. Oh, and rock out to early rock. I'd buy a glass breaker, a full body thermal night suit, study the internal workings of the modern day spacesuit, oxygen tanks, and a one-way ticket to DC. I would write a letter to my fiancée, telling her that I love her for all time and space, and that I wouldn't be coming back, leaving it on her desk. I'd buy a one-way ticket to DC, and on the eve of my final week, I'd go straight to the Smithsonian National Museum of Air and Space. That night I'd hide myself inside with my gear until after the museum closes. Once it's locked down, I'd use the glass breaker to break into the spacesuit exhibit. As the alarms go off, I fasten the fresh new oxygen tanks to an empty suit using my newfound knowledge, slip myself in, and seal on the airtight helmet as the authorities and security guards surround me. As the stroke of midnight hits, I'm transported 30 years back to the exact same physical location. Nowhere. The Earth is nowhere to be seen. The cold darkness is only punctuated by the weightlessness of space. I was prepared for this. I did the math. The solar system orbits around our galaxy at 230 kilometers per second. Our humble sun was more than 217 billion kilometers away. Just a tiny warm speck. One of many. As my eyes adjust and the cold sets in from my limbs, I notice I'm not alone. Stars, galaxies, the glow of the Milky Way, everywhere I look, is littered with light. No twinkling, no darkness, only beauty, not even a patch of black, an unimaginable sea of light. As the oxygen tanks run low, and my limbs freeze over, I take my last breath and die with the universe watching. Read as much as I could on my country's history of the 50s and 60s. Figure out a backstory that would withstand the backchecks possible at the time. I'm a history/genealogy buff. My dad's grandparents were still alive at the time. I would figure out a way to land near them and beg them for help. Figure it out from there. This would have been better with a 31st December 1969 date, like all the files on my hard drive. Find Sarah Connor and complete my mission. It's the middle of the desert. I plan for nothing. Wait anxiously for the week to go by. Arrive and walk through snake-riddled dunes. Find rags scattered around as I approach the city and cover myself. I become of use, and through labor I'm able to cloth properly. I walk to my hometown. It takes 15 days, which I enjoy. If I die in the meantime, nothing great is lost. The adventure itself is more than gratifying. I arrive home. My parents are getting married the following year. My father is a bohemian and I'm now about 12 years his senior. I settle, befriend them, and become part of their lifestyle. Get to know them at a level only close friends know each other. It's harder work than I anticipated. I cry every night after saying goodbye. I'm patient and wait to see my own birth. I'm beautiful, just like in the pictures. I hold myself in my own arms and whisper to myself how everything will be okay. I come out to my parents. They don't believe me at first, but I tell them the story of how they met. Years before they met me, I point my finger to the distance and say, this is the first time I see you, and I will marry you someday. I ask my mother to eat healthier. I ask my father to start painting. You were too good of a painter, but only started after she passes. I ask to mentor the child as I know what his struggles will be. I become Uncle Chilocco. I re-enjoy the pleasure of living by them and become my own best friend until he, myself, is tasked with scattering his own ashes in the place I showed him. He will understand. I guess I should feel lucky I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. It would be just after the summer of love, so free love was still a thing. It would have been cleaner. I could bum a blanket or something. I would say peace a lot. Also, we live near a building that was, until last year, still a commune. I could totally float. And I can cook pretty well. Stoned hippies would love that I'd cook, but not bum any weed. I could also navigate a career. I'd know where to buy real estate and when, so that I could straddle stagflation and tax code changes. Just spent about 10 minutes reading comments under the impression that Op said 2070. Needless to say, I was very confused. I'm underground level, so first I hope I'm not buried alive. Then hope I'm not phased into a person. Then hope I'm not phased into a bed or furniture or something. Then I kill myself before it happens, because I'm not willingly going into that awkward situation. Time to find the IBM 5100. I don't think most places had a lottery, so I'd have to know enough sporting events to start betting. But the first thing I'd do is choose a good starting place, not out here in the middle of the desert. 1970? Like a lot of people, I would study up, because if knowledge is the only thing I have, may as well make use of it. I'd fly out to Los Angeles and hopefully it's reasonably warm when I wake up naked. Hopefully I can find some clothes relatively easily, but worst case scenario I play like I was robbed. Next, the tricky part. Need to blend in for a while, but you have to eat. All that knowledge is wasted if you use it too brazenly. Find a little job if possible. Sleep on the beach. Get seen around, and make a few friends. Every once in a while you make a wild prediction and the damn thing comes true. Not just close, but exactly. Play it off like it's no big deal, and keep meeting people and occasionally making predictions. It could be anything. The trick is to memorize the first 2 years as much as possible. Then one big thing a month for the first 20 years until 1990 or so, I think. After that I could wing it, I think. It may not seem like much, but if you are right about one hyper-specific thing a month, every month for 2 decades, eventually people around you will notice. This exact moment is critical. It's now that you attribute all your gifts to God. Have to stay humble but be steadfast. Anything else is unbelievable and nobody is that lucky. If you blame God, it allows you to fly kinda in that religious crackpot zone that government types are hesitant to frick with, especially back then. So now you start to get a few followers. This is 1970. Remember, and the Beatles had recently gone to see a yogi and Jim Jones was doing cult things and people were looking for new things. Nobody can be an island of one, and eventually people are going to think you are Jesus the Christ of Nazareth reborn. This is problematic for a host of reasons, but I think you almost have to roll with it. Get involved with one of those 60s counterculture churches, but keep it clean. Stay low key and make as much money as possible until you get to the point where you can go crazy with the stock market and ditch the holy man gimmick in favor of big 80s time and coke and hookers. But that's just me. When you say same physical location, are you accounting for planetary movement? I wouldn't want to end up with the air evacuating my lungs in the deep space of January 1st, 1970. I get my ass to California, and when I arrive, I do drugs and the whole hippie thing. As said last time this kind of question was posed, lottery winnings can be unpredictable after you mess with the outcomes. Learn and memorize the date and magnitude of all major natural disasters, earthquakes, fires, volcano eruptions, etc. Use this to prove yourself as a god and start a cult. Turn that into a religion. Amass millions of followers. Do whatever IDC. As an American living in Hanoi, I definitely have it set to the hardest difficulty. Before anything happens I'll be arrested on sight. I think I'd learn as much as I could about the personalities of local politicians, generals, their history and what happens to them. Simultaneously I'd learn about psychic techniques and attempt to pass myself off as a crude psychic able to help them politically while still trying to get back to states. Or just accept my fate and go to Hanoi Hilton. Then play the usual game of sports bets and stocks. Find Donald Trump and kick him straight in the nuts. As it so happens, that's exactly the same way I arrived in 1970 the first time. I'm so ready for this. I'm going to read up on all the knowledge we have on HIV and save Freddie Mercury and hopefully prevent the epidemic in general. Put everything I need up my butt. Research the world's leading quantum physicists, neurologists and scientists studying the transfer of consciousness and takens as related to time theory and all that. I'm not a real scientist, so I don't know the lingo, and try to accelerate their projects by giving their past selves their future notes. Would have to the notes on my body, since I can't grasp the science yet. Work alongside the scientists learning and enhancing the science. Find my younger self and teach myself everything up until 1 week before my younger self has to jump back. Tell him he'll be sent back in 1 week and give my younger self all the updated information and give the scientists' younger selves the updated data. I could potentially help figure out time travel and how my mind and body are being sent back and inadvertently create the very time travel technology that I sent me back in the first place. Figuring out this technology could accelerate human advancement by millennia without having to waste time to develop new technology. We as a race could then evolve into beings who live in between time. Death and natural resource management would be obsolete, and we'd live unshackled by the laws of physics, allowing everyone time to learn whatever they'd like to learn, and even live amongst their dead loved ones and ancestors. Our plane of existence would be warped into a dimension of absolute enlightenment and pseudo-afterlife. Perhaps even recreating heaven itself. Finally, a super interesting question. Well, first I'll steal some clothes somehow, and then remain excited, because I'm about to live in the coolest decade of all time. I'll probably tell people the future to lol. I'd use my knowledge of future events to build a small army of vigilantes, and then on September 11th, 2001 we'd be at the airport waiting for those motherfuckers. Always bet on the Steelers/Cowboys/Vikings in the 70s. Switched to San Francisco in the 80s. AMD back to Dallas in the 90s. Finally, never stop betting on New England. I'll be lynched, imprisoned, maybe killed because people used to be racist back then. And Elmont still has very recent history with lynchings. I'm hopping on the Grateful Dead's tour bus, and I'm never freaking looking back. Prepare? I will have already prepared. I will go find the address of an ice house that has been around for that long. Drive there, and look for a key in a hiding place. It will be there. Walk in, find the safe, and open it with the combination. Find a old looking list inside the safe that will tell me all the things I need to invest in/bet on. Study that list, so I can remember when I go back. You see, I will own the house, because myself in the past will have bought it after making the investments on the list. The key will be where I expect it to be, because I will have left it there. When I go back, I'll be in the house. I won't own it yet, but it will be the summer home of someone. but the 1st of January 1970 is winter, so there will be some clothes and a few supplies. I will write down the list immediately, then leave, get a job, start investing, get super rich, make an offer on the house they can't refuse, hide the key where I found it, leave the list I wrote in the safe in the house, making sure the combination is the one I used in the future, use my vast wealth to hire service folks to continue keep the place up, leaving it in my will that sale of the house will not occur until the day after my time travel departure date, when it can be sold, and the proceeds given to a children's hospital. I don't know how the first iteration of me did it. That guy's awesome. Don't try to get job. No papers in veiled birthday. Jeez. Even the weeping angels let you keep your clothes. If I go back from where I'm standing 1 week from today, it's not a big problem. I'd just go to where I live then, and wait next to my bedroom window. It'd actually be easier now, because the fence and hedge are gone. Knock on my window, say about 9 words, to prove beyond a doubt I'm me from the future, and get let in. Clothes, food, money, and a place to stay until my new identity is sorted. Prep. 1970s was too early for lotteries, and you had to prove you had money to lose before you could open an account at a brokerage house. I think it was something like $20,000 in liquid assets. So I'd spend the time figuring out an easy way to memorize results of horse races, or I could just start screaming for help, wait for police to arrive, claim I'd been abducted by aliens, have them x-ray my chest so they see the artificial heart valve, and make a killing on the talk show circuit. Just go to a hippie commune,